So I started my career as a city administrator in the #1 seat at a population of 10,000. Smaller city, but in a smaller city what you learn is you learn every type of, it has the same problems as a large city. You have the code enforcement issue, you have the policing issue, you have the fire issue, you have the community engagement issue, everything, but I learned it from the seed. And from that, I've seen that working from a smaller city to a larger city, there's really no difference because you still have the same limited resources. You just have to prioritize efficiently. You still have to make sure you're engaging the population. You still have to be as transparent as possible, and you just have to do good government. There's a lot of resources that Savannah has, but I think where we struggle with, we just need to continue to make sure we get that communicated out to the people that need them. And that's going to be definitely activating all of the resources of the city and trying to meet people where they're at to get them to the place to where they can access those resources. I also think it's important that we, especially in administration, we have some great personalities and we bridge that relationship with schools.
I've been in Savannah or the Coastal Empire for nearly 20 years. I love this town. This town has all the attributes to make it a special place, to make it a place where people truly aspire to that mission of live, work, and play. Live, work, and play. We have all of those opportunities here in Savannah. And I believe this is the place to really put roots down, to continue to be a part of Team Savannah, and to really focus on my ability to make that vision statement become a reality. But I think my perspective after being here 15 years and literally working my way up through the ranks will really help me, as I try to guide the city of Savannah. You will hear commonly, government needs to run a little bit more like business. And I certainly believe that to be true in certain aspects. And we just need to define what those aspects are. Government can't, as a whole entity, be run like a business, but I will agree with you, there are certain entities that should be run like a business.
In those 6 years, I've worked on deep health and human services issues. I've also been in charge of leading our internal services cluster, which really focuses on the core business and corporate functions of government. What I think those 6 years have produced for me is a broad range of experience and skills and seeing issues and seeing policy areas where with the right effort, with the right funding, with the right strategies, you can start to see that needle move in the right direction.
Public safety has to be at the forefront of every public leader's mind. If people don't feel safe in their community, that kind of feeling and reality can reverberate negatively through every aspect of life and civic life, certainly. So that's a top priority. I think a poverty rate of over about 22% is what I understand. You have to be focused on that as well and making sure that there's opportunity there for every Savannian and making sure you're creating pathways to the middle class and pathways to opportunity for every part of the community.
I believe that I have led enough department directors. I have been in the forefront of many different projects. I have worked on the community engagement side. I have exposed myself with large budgets, small budgets. I know from multiple perspectives of how things ran. I am probably the only, or I am the only candidate who has been a city manager at one time. And because of that, I understand the weight of the seat. And I am prepared day one to take that weight and be able to execute and do my job. My goals always, when I look at crime, is we have to start looking at it as a holistic approach and not just a policing issue. Many of the areas in which crime happen, there's many other things associated with that. You have blight in the communities, you have trash in the communities, you have poor lighting possibly, and then a lot of people that are living there are underemployed, or they just don't even realize it's what resources have available. So my idea is to really just identify those areas, which we just had the most recent mass shooting that occurred. So we know, unfortunately, what I don't want to be is on the reactive side of, oh, this tragedy happened, so now let's push the resources this way. We need to find a way to try to get on the proactive side to where before it happens, we know that we have a presence in that community.
Leadership is important to me. So there's two things I would say is why I want to lead. Leadership is important, and number two, I love Savannah. So let's talk about those aspects. First and foremost, I'm a servant leader. What I mean when I say a servant leader is I want to empower people, my staff, to do more. I think by empowering people, you really get the best out of the organization, and most importantly, you get the best out of the person. With poverty, we have to identify, which we already have, the areas where we have the highest poverty rates, and then we have to identify the individuals in those areas, which we already have done. I can tell you where the top 30 communities where we have the highest poverty rates at right now today. I can tell you within those 30 communities what demographics, specifically females ages 24 to 35 is the highest group that has, or the group that has the most poverty. Next is the females 18 to 24. Next is males 18 to 24. Those are known facts. So once you figure out those facts, then you have to have a targeted approach to address them. That targeted approach starts with education. If you look at my background, education is important to me. If there is anything that has helped me get to the seat that I sit in today, irregardless of the candidate, it is education.
You know, sometimes government falls into the trap of thinking about projects only and project managing and what's the budget here and is it on time, but really where government needs to focus on is what's the outcome for people. How is this changing the way that Savannah's day-to-day life is either going to be improved, better, or their opportunities broadened because of the work that the city does. So that's my approach, and that's where I think being an agent of change is going to kind of lives and dies, is your ability to cut through the machinations of government and look through to what the outcome is and making sure you're driving towards that outcome.
It takes a lot to do a good job in this space, and that means it takes a lot from everybody, and making sure that you're hearing all of the voices and that you're relying on everybody's skill and expertise to be a part of the productivity.
I'm coming in Savannah with no preconceived notions. I'm coming in with no history. I'm coming in with just a fresh eye. And when you're working within an organization, you get used to doing the same thing day in and day out. And not that, but I've been exposed to 2 different organizations before coming to Savannah. So because of that, I can't do anything but change. But what I need to do is I understand that the staff has been through already a lot of change. So I have to find a way to keep them rolling in the same direction, but yet making small little tweaks so that I'm not throwing them off again, because what you don't want to do is continue to have inconsistencies with staff. You have to make your improvements, but do it in a way to where you're blending the old and the new, and that will be my goal. We got to really get out there and get our feelers out and let people know and engage them in the spaces that they feel safe. And we know what those spaces are because they go there. So we just need to go there. So the goal is to let them know that we are flexible enough to come to them rather than expecting them to come to us. And then start being consistent and showing up. With that distrust is because they're so used to people coming in when an event happens but leaving. We got to make that a consistent practice to show that we're going to be visible in their community day in and day out. And it doesn't necessarily have to be just the police. It can be just the public services, or it can be, it's just somebody that's representing the city doing something great in their community. So I think consistency, staying truthful to what we say we're going to do, being there when we say we're going to do, and following through with what we say we're going to accomplish is the key to building back that trust for the community.
Whether I'm really talking about, the engineering aspect, or I'm talking about coaching, or I'm talking about, sports and athletic things, I'm very balanced, well-rounded. I really feel like that's a strength that I bring to the table, that I can move in many different spaces. I enjoy many different things, whether it's fashion, I really do like fashion, and coaching, I love that. So I put together all these things to create a very well-rounded, balanced person. So as the assistant city manager, I know I have the skill set, the education, and the abilities, and you couple that with the perspectives of working through the organization internally, and you couple that with the experience of working in the community for 15 years, and yet those 3 things are why I feel like I am the best candidate for the city manager position.
There's a lot of my own personal experience and background where I think lend itself well to the challenges and opportunities that Savannah has, my experience in Washington, D.C., but also because I come from a place not dissimilar from Savannah. I was born in the National Historic District in Natchitoches, Louisiana. My parents worked in the housing authority and worked for historic preservation their entire lives. And so some of this historic culture is a little bit in my blood, but also how cities like this that are often tight-knit and communities and revolve around certain physical places, their interplay with one another and the communities around it. And I think they're great places to be. And Savannah just spoke to me as a place where I could be an asset and help the team move forward.
You've got an amazing culture and asset that it's going to keep the city vibrant and popular for a long, long time. And you've got to be able to support that and keep that robust, because that's what's going to help you fund all of the other priorities and services you need to give the residents.
I love spending time with my sons. I have a 14-year-old and a 17-year-old, and they, although they would love to spend more time in their rooms playing video games, I love to disrupt them and play and get shot and killed every time trying to play their video games with them. And I love spending time with Mr. P. I have a puggle that I adopted 3 years ago. He is an old man, he's 7 years old, and he is the best thing. If anybody in my house asks me who is my favorite, it is Mr. Peabody, AKA Notorious P, AKA P.
Heath Lloyd, the person, is a family man, a man that believes in traditional values. My family is very important to me, but I think the family values also are part of what I bring to my work as well. So my work ethic and my family values, they really go hand in hand.
Jay, the person outside of work, which is hard to distinguish because I really live to work a lot, and work becomes a big part of my life. But I have great friends that I've had my whole life that I continue to be in touch with and spend time with. I like spending time outdoors. I try to be an avid cyclist, but sometimes I don't always get to go out there every day. I've been a fly fisherman for the last several years, which has been really a sanctuary for me outside of the hustle and bustle of the day-to-day work. And I also really enjoy going out to restaurants and sharing a meal with people that you love or with coworkers and kind of celebrating life. I come from a celebratory place. I come from a celebratory family, and those experiences are important to me.
3 words that describe me are balanced, focused, and driven.
I am funny. I have so much energy, and I'm authentic. What you see is what you get.
Hardworking, collaborative, straightforward.